And here we go. Oh man, a third person in the room got me again. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Hope you are having a terrific week. Kenny, how's things there in the Midwest?
Uh, Same as always, pretty much. Nothing really too new.
Oh, you got some pretty hot weather there, right?
Yeah, it was a hot a couple days here, so
Yeah, we'll
but
get to we'll get to the All-Star game today. We're going to start with something a little bit different this morning, but Andres Jimenez making the All-Star team. And so I tell you, there are times where you look at trades and you sometimes can't tell. And I'll take the trade still. I liked Ahmed Rosario. I thought Jimenez had showed a lot of potential, but I'll take Francisco Lindor and what he's doing and his clutch hitting this year and his 68 RBIs. So he's potentially going to have 70 RBIs before the break. And I'll take that. His batting average could be a little bit better. I think he's batting now. He's probably back up to 250 after yesterday, which is low for him, but I'll take it. But any buzz there with Ramirez and Jimenez making the All-Star team from Cleveland?
not as much. I mean, Ramirez is he's been kind of the perennial guy the last few years.
He really is, though. He's one of, you don't hear much about him, but man, oh man, the numbers
he's really good.
Yeah.
Also, he's going to be doing the home run derby, so that'll be fun.
Okay.
Also, there was a third guy, their closer, Emmanuel Clase, who's also really good. I don't know if you've seen him. He's throwing
no
101 sinkers like left and right. So he's really good. Yankees met up with him. Yeah, so they had three guys.
Okay.
So it'll be fun. I really like Jose Ramirez. Kind of like what you said. I feel like he doesn't really get a lot of talk. But I am also very it's very exciting to see a guy like Jimenez make the All-Star team, because especially when you look at trades and you're trading away stars, you usually don't get much back in return. There's obviously the infamous Bartolo Colon trade, where they're giving up Cliff Lee, Brandon Phillips, like they're giving up stars. But usually it's like you give a guy up and you get a package of prospects. Usually that package of prospects doesn't work out. Another interesting trade that both guys ended up as all-stars this year, or one has. When the Yankees traded Garrett Cooper to the Marlins, who is now an all-star for Miami.
He's
know who they got back for that trade?
Was it? No, it's too long ago for the pitcher they had on there for a little bit. Now, who did they get back? Oh, Stanton.
No, they got back Michael King.
Michael King. Okay.
King isn't an all-star. A lot of people think he should be, but
he's really good. It's interesting because a lot of those trades usually sometimes don't work out, but like the Yoenis Cespedes trade to the Tigers, that Michael Fulmer, did he make the team? I know he's their closer now, and he's like having a really good year as a closer, because he had that first good year as a starter, and then the last couple of years he wasn't so much, and they put him in the bullpen, and he's their closer now. I don't know if he made the team or not, but that's turned out to be a pretty good team for the Tigers, especially since the Tigers only had Cespedes just for that half year, and obviously Cespedes led the Mets, to the pennant in 2015 and had a spectacular year in 2016 as well. But we'll come back to this. I don't know if you're looking at Fulmer, but I want to start with the big trade. Let's start back in the NBA. The NBA really dominating their offseason, right? And still dominating the headlines, even in the middle of baseball season. So the big talk here in New York, and it's hard to get your hopes up, man, because we've been here with rumors before, but the big talk in New York is Donovan Mitchell, Spider, right? Possibly heading here to the Knicks. And apparently the Knicks are in a huge trade talks with the Utah Jazz. And so I could tell you from here, it's dominating the headlines in the sports apps here, both in the New York Post, both in the Daily News. And I think the writers are very cautiously optimistic as well, right? They're not saying this is a done deal because salary cap wise, there's some work to do for this to actually happen. Maybe even getting a third team involved, but they may not have to. Obviously, this makes sense for Utah to now start over a little bit since they traded Gobert. But what's your take and what are you hearing? And I know probably you're hearing a little less there in Cleveland, but I know you follow the national stuff a lot. So what's your take here on the possibility of Donovan Mitchell coming to the Knicks?
Well, first of all, I think it would be excellent. I would love to have Donovan Mitchell as part of this team. Because like right now, you've got yourself a pretty decent team. The team that like, yeah, you could fight for like a play-in spot. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
But like you're talking a backcourt of Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, you have something cooking. It's kind of interesting though to see what they'll end up giving up. Because Utah has kind of said like, we want picks, and the Knicks are actually a good fit for that. Unlike say like the Lakers, who don't own their pick till 2027.
Right. They have a lot. They have a lot of picks.
Yeah, they have 11 picks in the next 7 years in the first round.
Yeah.
So it's like you have the like because you could give up 4 and you still have basically a pick a year. So I look at that and that's a good fit. It's also interesting to kind of see the type of trades you can get. I'd sent you one that kind of that let's see, where did I'm gonna go back to our text here.
Yeah.
Mitchell for Evan Fournier, Obi Toppin, and Emmanuel Quickly. Which like you look at it from, and I would also probably say at least 3 picks. According to like the trade calculator, that trade would work. I don't know if Utah would do it, but we'll see.
Well, you got to throw in a lot of picks then, right? So you got to throw in more number 1 picks. But let me ask you something about the picks, Ken. You know more about this than me. A lot of the Knicks picks are protected ones, right? Is that, and what does that exactly mean?
I believe it means that like if it's in the top 10, it's more of like it goes to the next year.
Okay.
I'd have to look up.
Okay.
Let's see.
So if it's top 10 or if it's lottery, right? They get to keep it, like the Knicks would keep that pick, or you say it just falls into the next year for let's say Utah. I don't know. I don't know exactly what that means. You know, but I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Essentially, and it depends because it depends on the trade. Some will say like lottery pick protected. Some will say top 10 protected or top 5, whatever. So basically, if it's in the top 10 or in the top 5, then it's not a pick that's selected and another pick is traded. So like, let's say the Knicks say, we got a top 5 protected pick, and then they end up with the 5th one, then they would just trade another one.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So it still could work out extremely well for Utah here, for the next couple of years if they got, a package of Obi and Quickly, Fournier. They would be at least a little bit competitive, this year. I think Toppin is going to be a borderline star. I think Quickly is going to be very good for a long time. Again, I think the Knicks did well in the draft these last couple of years, where it reminds me of the Isaiah Thomas days, which I know, man, Knicks fans just bringing up Isaiah Thomas, but Isaiah Thomas really did well with the draft. And what he did was he drafted players that were very good for a long time in the league. Not sure why Nate Robinson flamed out. I thought he should have played at least another 5 years or so, but but David Lee turned out, obviously, with injuries, ended his career, but he turned out to be an excellent NBA player. Um, Channing Frye was really good. So the Knicks, I think it's the same. I see Quentin Grimes and Quickly, McBride, Toppin, I think, stands out for all of them because the potential, we see it there for him to be, borderline star. But I think all these guys will be solid in the league. But Donovan Mitchell is that upper echelon of player, right? I mean, so you got to go all out here. But let me ask you this: would you? I know the first answer is going to be yes. So I'll just a quick yes or no. Would you throw Julius Randle into the trade?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's another one that I calculated this morning. Donovan Mitchell for Julius Randle and Cam Reddish would work.
Okay.
I don't know why it seems like Thibodeau hates Cam Reddish, but it kind of seems like he does.
I don't get it. He's got a lot of talent. Potentially he looks really good to me.
So like Randle, Reddish, and 4 or 5 picks would do it. But also, I don't know if Utah would want to do that.
Yeah. Do you build your team around Julius Randle? I'll say this, and I've defended Randle a lot, but I'll say this: that would be a great landing spot for him in Utah. Without the pressure and everything like that of New York. I mean, it's just kind of the opposite. Although that fan base, they've been very, very passionate for a long time. That place always still sells out. And they're loud. They love their team there because it's kind of the only pro team that they have there. All right. So my second question then to you. So positive yes on Randall, and it sounds like that would work. Again, I doubt. I'm with you. I doubt that Utah would do that. Would you trade R.J. Barrett? Would you put him in the deal for Donovan Mitchell?
I would say. Part of me would say no, because I could totally see RJ Barrett going to Utah and being a star.
No doubt. Yeah.
But my thing though, I feel like that's probably where the conversation's going to start. I am super excited about this Donovan Mitchell potential trade, but my worry is that it's going to be very similar to the Carmelo Anthony trade, where the Knicks give up the farm to get this guy, and you're kind of left with nobody. And that's not going to do you any good. Like, to me, the Knicks have to try their best to keep RJ Barrett on this team too. Because you have your top 3 guys of RJ Barrett, Donovan Mitchell, and Jalen Brunson. You could do something with that.
No doubt. Yeah.
But like if your starting 5 is like Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, and then a couple guys that they probably wouldn't make many other teams. Knicks are still staring at a 6 seed for the next several years.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, hopefully some teams learn this from the past, right? Because I think it's happened to the Nets twice when they just dealt everybody away to get, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and 2 guys that were obviously Hall of Famers, but past their prime at that point. And then they did it again with James Harden. But the Knicks with Carmelo, I think that was worse because they could have just waited a few more months and they would have gotten him. We could go back to that, but they would have gotten him and still had all of their role players who were very good at that time, right? The Raymond Feltons, the Gallinaris, and I'm hoping that one way or another, though, this does happen without gutting the whole team. I think I like your first proposal. I don't think they'll do Julius Randle. I'm sure that would work, like you said, but I don't think Utah will do that. I think they will do for, the 2 really good young players, plus Fournier, who they could buy out or who would be a good role player for them. I'm not sure on a rebuilding team, Fournier would be all that great, but, he's better on a contending team. But they could buy him out and send him elsewhere. And then they've got those pieces. And then between the Gobert trade, and if the Knicks give them 3 or 4 more picks, they're kind of set for a little bit in terms of the rebuilds and getting some younger talent in there. So it's it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this plays out and see if this comes together faster sooner rather than later. Now, Donovan Mitchell is kind of a local guy. That also hasn't always worked out. Not everybody can always play in their hometown. Interesting fact. Did you know that his dad is an executive with the Mets?
I thought I heard something along those lines. Yeah,
like in their scouting department or something like that. His dad's a baseball guy. But listen, Mitchell brings a lot to the table. In addition to that, I think he's a winning ball player. I mean, Utah's never gotten over the hump. But wasn't it just 2 years ago they fought Phoenix for the best record in the West? And, he's won a couple of playoff series, that's for sure. They haven't gotten to the finals, but he seems to me to be a winning ball player. The only concern that I have, and maybe you can look this up real quick, he's had like more than, which is unusual for NBA players, but he's had like a few concussions, hasn't he? And that's like slowed him down a little bit. He had more than one, and he had one, I think, that was really bad. And again, that's also very unusual for, NBA players to, have concussions, let alone more than one. I want to say he's had 2 or 3, and it took him a while to get back to himself. And I don't know that that's a big concern for a guard because they're not under the boards that much, but I'm sure that the NBA probably does the best job with physicals, before they make the trade, right? Go ahead, you found something.
Yeah, there's an article, he's just kind of opening up about it. He's had 4 concussions throughout his life, and he had 2 within 1 season. This was, I guess, this year.
Wow.
2 this year.
That's hard to do as an NBA player. I'm not laughing about it, but I'm just like, that's hard to do as an NBA player, right? To have, I mean, and especially like a guard, I would think. All right. And so I guess, listen, you and I hope this happens one way or another, right? But just hope it happens and they don't gut the whole team. And I'm with you. My last possible resort would be throwing RJ Barrett in the deal. But let me ask you this real quick. Ja Morant and Zion, right, came out the same year as RJ. They've already signed their second rookie contract, right? Which was surprise for me with Zion. They committed a lot of money to him. Didn't surprise me with Ja Morant. I mean, come on, they're not going to let him get walk away. Are you surprised that RJ, the Knicks haven't done that with him yet?
Yes and no. The Knicks have historically never really signed guys to a second contract. It's the Charlie Ward curse.
Yeah.
Which actually was just broken because Mitchell Robinson signed a second deal.
I was going to say, yeah.
But also, maybe this is part of it because one of the stipulations of the CBA, all the reason why I know this is because of the KD stuff, you can't have 2 rookie max deals on the same roster. So maybe this is kind of a let's see what happens with Donovan Mitchell thing. And then if we can't get him, we'll lock up RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll see. I wonder why that's been. Hey, listen, since we're on basketball, you and I, we like to mix in some of the social issues as well. Obviously, we spent a lot of time on Trevor Bauer and Deshaun Watson, and we haven't talked yet about Brittney Griner. And this is, man, I don't even know what to make of this, and it's a lot of layers to this, I think, and political layers to this. But the bottom line is that you've got the WNBA's best player that is still sitting in a jail in Russia for what is it, hashish oil? I know nothing about any of that. I don't think you do either. And it's been almost going on 5 months now. She pleaded guilty, and that whole legal system works a lot differently. And there's been a groundswell, on it. Her wife spoke to the president. She wrote a letter to the president, Brittney Griner did. And LeBron James kind of chimed in the other day, but a lot of people have been saying that if this was LeBron James, that there's no way he'd be sitting there all this time. So there's that whole, kind of a discrepancy between men and women's sports. And let's be real, there definitely is. I mean, the NBA is more popular than the WNBA, but the WNBA has carved out quite a great niche, for itself. I remember taking your sister to when the New York Liberty kind of first came into play, taking her to a couple of games. It was so much fun. And they've stayed around. Now, I think they just celebrated their 20th, 25th anniversary or something like that. But when it comes to that, Brittney Griner, I mean, she was national champion. She's won the WNBA championship. She is the best player in that league. But the fact that they don't make much money is why she was in Russia in the first place, that they go play. Like, you don't really see, at least not NBA stars. You might see mid-level or low-level NBA players going and playing overseas for a while, but she goes to do it because she makes more money, there than in the WNBA for the whole season. She just plays a couple of months there. But then she gets stopped at the airport with this and gets detained. And listen, I know if that was here in the US, she would have definitely been out by now, right? That would be like a misdemeanor, or it wouldn't be considered a very serious crime, put it that way, as if like you're taking a gun through, an airport. But there, I guess it's considered a very serious crime. And of course, you have the Russian-US relations being the most strained that it's been since, the Cold War. And so here she is still sitting in jail with no end in sight. What's been your take on all of this?
Well, kind of like what a lot of others have said, I feel like, yeah, if this was not even just LeBron James, if this was any male athlete, they wouldn't have thought twice about it, and she would have been home months ago. And just to kind of explain, like, to show the whole disparity, like, she's making $221,000 this year. And this is like one of the top WNBA players out there.
Yeah.
Now, I understand a lot of that is like revenue is different in the NBA and everything like that. But still, like, there's a reason behind that. And it's just very interesting because, like, you would think, especially like, oh, well, like, I don't know, this might be just my perception of other countries. Oh, well, this dumb American is trying to do this and then buy. Like, you would think that, like, because like you said, here, it's not really a crime at all. And you would think that, like, they would kind of provide a little leniency, but like, she could be facing up to 10 years in prison.
That's just crazy to think about that. Yeah. Wow.
And like, and yeah, I really hope that, like, you would think at some point, especially with all the national attention that she's gotten, you would think that they would try harder to get her back. But it still kind of seems like they're not. I've kind of heard that that, like, she pleaded guilty as part of like a prison exchange. So like someone that's Russian that's here in America that's in prison would then go back. But also, who knows? But yeah, it just, to me, at what point are you like saying, okay, like, let's figure this out?
And to your point, I mean, they could be trying really hard behind the scenes to bring her home, but Russia has all the cards here, right? They may not even be taking President Biden's phone calls, right? They may say, "Oh, it's Biden from the U.S. calling. We're not even going to talk to him about it." And I'm sure it's not at that level. I'm sure it's other diplomats that are probably speaking about this, but I don't think it's a priority for Russia to let her go. And it's almost like, they could be laughing in our face right now. Look what we have here. We've got, like you said, one of their best players, someone that's even if you don't follow the WNBA, it's highly recognizable. I think a lot of, if you're just a sports fan, her name. I mean, she's been really famous since she was in college at Baylor, I believe, and obviously she's a two-time Olympic champion. So you know her, and so for them, that's a chip, I think, that they have. And like you said, maybe they're looking at an exchange and maybe they want to do that quietly, but on the surface, it just, it doesn't look good, like that we're not trying as hard to get her out of there. We could be. This is I would imagine it's just very, very tricky. But $221,000 is what she made. And so apparently now, and somebody else said this, the lady that is, I'm forgetting her name, that is in charge of the Players Association, said that potentially just for those couple of months that they make more money there than they make in a whole season, here.
Yeah.
So potentially there she made more than $221,000. So because my first thought was, why is she playing in Russia, man? She's one of the top players. Why she need to go over there? But then money wise, she probably needed to go over there. And you don't see a ton of endorsements, right? You don't see you always see Nike commercials with NBA players, LeBron James or whoever, but you don't really see WNBA players having a lot of endorsements or not, and maybe they do in a smaller space. So there is that disparity, right? But the sports are, WNBA is not as popular as the NBA. It just isn't, and I'm sure that their revenue stream is good. I know that their crowds is still really good in a lot of places, but I mean, suppose just kind of reading it, the looking into the future here a little bit, but I don't think you or I will even conjure an answer. Suppose she does get sentenced to 10 years, and again, it's different there. I understand it's not like parole and stuff like that. If she gets sentenced to 10 years, she probably has to do 10 years. Can you imagine that?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing that's been kind of confusing to me is like sometimes if someone commits a small crime here, they just get deported. Why isn't she just getting deported? Also, Brittney Griner, I remember when she was coming out of college, there was some, I forgot who it was. It might have been Mark Cuban. It might have been Greg Popovich. One of the two. Said oh, I would consider drafting her for the NBA. She's that good.
Yeah.
And yet it seems like everyone kind of doesn't care. Like you said, 2-time Olympic champion. Was it Baylor that ended that UConn streak of 97 straight games or something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember if she was on that team, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was.
Yeah.
I don't think she was, but
yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of seems weird.
It does. There's probably some things to the story that we're just not aware of just yet, and I don't know what else to say. I just think I just pray that she gets out of there. And listen, she shouldn't have had what she had, and whatever that's used for, I have no idea. But she had to know, since she's been there a few times, that it's not legal. I would think she knew that. In fact, I could have sworn that she might have admitted that. But maybe she's admitting that so that she could get off. Well, we'll see how this one plays out. But I really pray and hope that she's not there for much longer.
Yeah.
And you're right. You would think, hey, deport her and say, hey, you can never come back here. I think she'd be good with that. Yeah, okay. I'm not coming back anyway, Hey, so listen. Go ahead. You have one more thing. Go ahead.
I was just looking this up because when I Googled her, and
yeah.
Apparently one of these times she signed a contract overseas, she's made $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So that's insane compared to what the WNBA is paying.
Yeah. I mean, that's just about triple what she made in a whole year. And she's only there for a couple of months, I think. Yeah, there's a disparity there that at some point they'll start to bring that up a little bit more, I would think. All right, let's listen. We were supposed to have a special guest from the South on this morning, and we'll get him on next week. But I want to talk about the Mets Braves, and I'm sure you didn't get to watch much of it because you're watching your Yankees. But first thing I'll tell you is that, and you like this, the first 2 games of this series, and by the way, the scheduling is so weird. These teams have, I think, 14 more games left with each other. and they have a 5-game series coming up in a couple of weeks. So Braves fans don't panic. I mean, the Mets left town with a 3.5-game lead, still in first place. Mets have been in first place for a long time, it seems like, and I want us to stay there. But here's the thing. I know you like to hear this. Those first 2 games had a postseason feel. This early in July, it's rare. I mean, they were so tense. It was like every pitch there was something, and so Max Scherzer in game 1 just lights out. Then, Edwin Diaz comes in, lights out. I mean, the Mets play just an excellent all-around game, and they take the first game of the series. This is going to be my criticism of the Braves, right? They've got an excellent, they're the champs, right? And who knows how they'll retool even more if they need to at the trading deadline. They pick up Robinson Cano because Ozzie Albies, as you know, is out for a while. And Orlando Arcia, who I was once a very good player, has kind of stopped hitting, for them. So that's why they got Cano as kind of a backup there. So the Braves make moves, but oh my gosh, the Braves, I don't know which team they've turned into, man. They are just all or nothing with the home run. All of their runs in this series was scored by home runs. And I'm just like, it's amazing. And they either have a lot of home runs or they strike out a lot. And I don't know if that's sustainable. I think you live by the home run and you die by the home run. And I hate to say this, we saw that of your Yankee teams for a few years ago. They've gotten away from that, but that's kind of how the Yankees were. And it's not sustainable or winnable. Now, to the Braves' credit, they've got some really excellent pitching, and their bullpen is really, really lights out. And so for the Mets to take 2 out of 3 here was, and in their home ballpark, I know it's still early. They've got a lot of games left, but I texted Mike. I said, man, I'll just take it and get out of town. I'm not bragging or anything like that. You could tell that the Mets knew that this was a big moment, for them. In the grand scheme of things, when it's in October, will we remember this 3-game series? I don't know. It wasn't a 3-game sweep, so I don't know that we'll remember it so much. Or, I can remember, I always told you about this in 1986, very early, maybe second, third week of the season, after the Mets had lost to the Cardinals in 85. They came out like gangbusters in 86, and they went to St. Louis and swept 4-game series, and they never looked back. So sometimes you can have those series in the middle of the season, but they're usually sweeps. Yankees, Red Sox in 78, when the Yankees
Boston Massacre.
Boston Massacre. I mean, and those games weren't close. The Yankees went in and swept them, big time on their way to catching, the Red Sox, that year. But I just think that this for the Mets really was a confidence builder. They now have 4 games with the Cubs, and the Cubs are reeling, right now. So, they're hopefully catching the Cubs a good side. They go against Marcus Stroman tomorrow, I think.
That's gonna be fun.
That should be fun, because he'll be chatty, But it was a big series for the Mets, I think. I think the Braves will just bounce right back from that. I think the Mets cooled them off a little bit because the Braves were blistering hot. But the Mets schedule gets tough after the All-Star break. Padres and Yankees, so and it was fun. It was those first couple of games were a postseason feel. So let me stop and see if you had any comments. I know you probably watched it from the periphery, probably watched some highlights. What was your take on Mets Braves this week?
I can't say I saw this as an original thought, but kind of. When I saw the Max Scherzer line, I was like, man, they are very lucky to have a guy like Max Scherzer there to kind of shut the door and kind of set the tone a little bit for the series, especially with Jacob deGrom still out. Yeah. I think he has still been one of the most valuable pieces. I know he's been hurt for a hot second, but still, especially you looking towards October. I mean, I don't think the Mets will be playing in a wild card series. I think they'll probably end up getting one of the buys. But you look at a division series and you got Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom. and then really whoever you want to put after that. Like, you got the two of maybe the best 5 or 6 pitchers in baseball right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like you kind of look, I know he was very expensive, and it's like, oh man, he's missing time. But a series like this, a series against the Braves, Max Scherzer's the type of guy, like, he's not backing down from the heavier competition. Also, like, this is going to be fun. 14 more games against the Braves. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a dogfight. Everyone else in the division is kind of really far out. Like, I don't know, even some of the divisions, it's like, oh, there's not going to be much intrigue. Like, according to the fan graphs, there are 2 American League teams that have 100% chance of making the postseason. Which I think technically it's probably like 99.9999. But the Yankees and the Astros. But like, you look at the Mets and the Braves, I mean, 2.5 games out, like 14 games can swing a lot. And I think especially the next time they play, like, you can definitely see like a sweep being a huge difference. I think also for the Braves, they put themselves in such a deep hole early. They had that really long, 14-game winning streak? But like, I feel like sometimes when you don't like overtake the other team, it still feels like you're still so far behind. I think like also you see that kind of in basketball too, like teams down by 20 and then they fight all the way back. They get like a 15-0 run, but then they can never take the lead. It just kind of feels like you kind of lose that momentum a little bit. That might be what we start to see with the Braves. But also, like, the Braves aren't going to be intimidated. Like you said, the Braves, like, a big reason to me why they won the World Series last year wasn't necessarily because they were the best team. They by far had the best trade deadline.
No doubt.
And so I think because of that, like, they're going to be very busy to kind of figure out where they really need to fill the holes the best. I'm pulling up their this is their upcoming schedule here. They head to Washington for 4. After the All-Star break, they play the Angels, the Phillies, and the Diamondbacks. So their schedule is a lot easier.
Mike told me.
And then they play the Phillies again, and then that 5-game series against the Mets.
It's a long way from being over. And this is going to be fun. And you know, sometimes it'll be fun, sometimes it won't, because you know, when it's your team, I'm like, oh, you know, my stomach will be in a vice with some of these games, you know. But I think that you know I want to ask you to talk about the Yankees in the All-Star game, and I'll segue you in there. Austin Riley is unbelievable. This guy's hitting home runs left and right, you know, in a series. And it was almost like he just got his bat out there and hit a ball over the center field fence yesterday. Why in the heck is he not on the All-Star team? And I know that you have to take, and I totally believe in that rule. I think it's a great one. That there's got to, especially since the Mets were bad a lot of times, and you'd have at least one Met in the All-Star game, you know? So I know that there has to be one player from each team, but and you have more of the All-Star game knowledge of who made it and who didn't than I do right now. But it's unbelievable that he's not in that he wasn't picked. Swanson was picked, he's having a great year too, but Riley wasn't, and that was just really, really weird. Now listen, he might still get on the team. Somebody's probably, you know, there's always players that back out or injured or something like that, but he's got to be the first one, I would think, that people pick. But so without answering that just yet, let's hear about your week and the Yankees and a big comeback win last night after, you know, they had lost to the Reds the night before. So what's going on with your team there?
Well, I look at what was that, Tuesday night, that collapse. I had a friend of mine text me, it's a huge Yankee fan, kind of hitting the panic button a little bit. And to me, I'm like, Clay Holmes had given up 4 runs all season. 2 of those came on Tuesday night. Like,
come on.
Like, it's gonna happen. it's very rare that you have a guy like Zach Britton that has a sub-1 ERA throughout the entire year. You're going to have those clunkers. You're going to have those nights where you can't really find the strike zone. You get a couple of bad luck hits. The biggest thing about Clay Holmes being a sinker baller is he's probably going to get hit with a lot of like singles, but like he's never going to get like the big power stuff, which is why like he's in the perfect role as a closer.
Yeah.
Like the Yankees, they've had a couple of bad games here and there. To me, the biggest concern right now is the arm of Luis Severino. I don't know if you saw, he left the game early with some shoulder tightness.
I saw that. Yeah.
And he has had an excellent season. I'm concerned about what that's going to look like going forward. I would assume if he has to go on the IL, you're probably going to have JP Sears, although he did get sent down after the game. He's probably going to be the guy that would replace him. And like, I'm kind of fine with that. I'm curious to see like what they would do as far as the trade deadline, which is coming up soon. One of those guys they may look at is actually pitching against them tonight in Luis Castillo.
The Yankees get Luis Castillo. I mean, come on. You know.
Which like he's one of those guys like the Reds, I think, still are kind of an interesting team. They start out dreadful, as we kind of had noted before. They play
well, yeah.
But they've been playing better recently.
Yeah.
The Red Sox, like kind of like with the Astros, the Yankees didn't play great against them. They had a couple of really bad games, but they still split the series. Like the Yankees haven't been great over the last couple of weeks, but they're still winning games. And I think like that kind of shows how good of a team this really is. And like, yes, you need to win those games in October. You need those 11, 12 wins, whatever you may need nowadays. I have to look at the new format, but I'm not concerned about them overall. I really hope Severino's okay. I don't know if you saw any of the Aaron Boone hitting camera. He put his phone on record in the office while he was telling the new guys, because the Yankees have 3 new guys that were all-stars for the first time: Trevino, Clay Holmes, and Nestor Cortez. And getting their like genuine reactions was absolutely phenomenal. I would say you should check that out.
I will.
Trevino's is probably the best. He had said like, man, if you would have told me that I'd be an all-star a year ago, I wouldn't have believed you. Yeah. So like just kind of hearing, and you look at all of their stories and they're all incredible. Like Trevino wasn't supposed to be on this team. Yeah. Ben Rortvedt was supposed to be the backup. But then from what I've been told too, when they were trying to get Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, they were also trying to get Trevino because they really liked his defense and everything. But then IKF was traded to Minnesota, and that's where the Josh Donaldson thing comes in.
Right.
But still, like, he wasn't supposed to be like a star on this team at all. He was kind of just we're going to have him as the number 9 hitter to help guide the pitching staff. And he's been excellent. Nestor Cortez came into the season as the 5th starter and just kept winning games. Clay Holmes was like one of the high leverage guys, but like he probably wasn't ahead in the pecking order of Loizaga, Chad Green, definitely not Chapman. Right. And then when all of those guys get hurt, who's the one that steps up and continues to just be dominant? So like, I know you have your guys like, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Giancarlo Stanton, first time as a Yankee, he's an all-star, which is very surprising.
I'm surprised by that. Yeah. But he's been hurt so much as Yankee, so maybe I shouldn't be that surprised. Wow.
But like, I mean, he's been in the all-star games before, Judge also, and Garrett Cole. So like those guys, it's like, okay, whatever. But you look at the 3 guys that are new, it's just really fun to kind of see that. 6 all-stars is a lot, and especially people are like, well, Michael King should be an all-star. Anthony Rizzo should be an all-star. With like Rizzo, you look at his batting average, maybe not.
Yeah.
But like Michael King, I can kind of maybe see him getting in as like a replacement.
Still some guys that deserve, There's guys that deserve it. You can't take anybody. Go back to Trevino for a second, because you said that there was now you said that I think I got a text from you that there's a little bit more backstory to him. But I would say also this. What happened? Your number one guy was like hitting like 9, 10 home runs in spring training, in short spring training. So he definitely was ticketed to be the backup, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, I think that, like, I don't think they would directly say this, but like they had Ben Rortvedt, who was like going to be he was going to be the tandem, because they got Rortvedt's a lefty, Higashioka's a righty, so it's kind of the lefty righty tandem. They thought that would be great, and then he gets hurt pretty early on in spring training. I don't even know if he got into a game, honestly. And then they're like, okay, well, we need a backup catcher. So that's when they were able to acquire Trevino. And I think what their thought was when Rortvedt gets healthy, then they would kind of, especially if Trevino isn't doing what they thought he would, that they were just going to DFA him or outright him to the minors or something. But he's like, no, I'm taking this job. Also, Trevino grew up a huge Yankee fan.
Okay.
And also his dad, a huge Yankee fan.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
it's
interesting.
It really is. It's an amazing story. And I got to check out that video because I love those reactions like that. So speaking of the All-Star game, so Yankees are going to be fine. Your challenge, I'll just say this real quick. Your challenge, your Yankee team's challenge is to stay sharp through the dog days of August and September, but especially more when you get into September, to stay sharp for the playoffs. And Aaron Boone's going to have to figure that one out, because I think that the other teams are going to be battling for spots. Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rays. Orioles. I don't think they're going to, the Orioles too. Amazing. They're doing amazing. I just don't think that they will be battling the Yankees for the division. I don't see that happening. I mean, the way this team has been built, and I'll never forget though, Joe Morgan on a Sunday night game when the Mets built that big lead in 2007, he said, as fast as you can build it. I think the Mets had a 10.5 game lead at the All-Star break that year and didn't make the playoffs. And that was one of the collapses that year. And I remember him saying, just as fast as you build that lead, you can lose that lead in a half. It's not going to happen to the Yankees. It really isn't. Not the way this team plays and shows up every single day. There's a way this team shows up every day, and I know that's sometimes an overused cliche, but this team shows up every day, man. They don't take an inning or a day off. They really don't. And I really got to give Aaron Boone a lot of credit for pulling this team together. I think they're going to have a similar second half as they've had first half, but their challenge is going to be to stay sharp, So
yeah.
All-Star game, really, you and I, that's a tradition for us. We're pumped up. The American League has a bomb squad, as they always do. It's just so strange how it's changed from when I was a kid. The National League was just dominating every year, and it's now the American League that does that. But what stands out to you for the All-Star game pick? 6 Yankees, 4 Mets. Really happy about that. I was surprised at Marte's pick, but Marte's been really, really good in the first half. But what was your take on some of the picks, and maybe somebody else aside from Austin Riley got left off the team that might get on?
I think one of the bigger picks that sticks out to me is, and he's also going to be part of the home run derby too, Julio Rodriguez of the Mariners.
Yeah.
I think I texted this one to you. He is the 3rd Mariner to be selected to the All-Star game under the age of 21. The other 2, you might have heard of them, Alex Rodriguez and Ken Griffey Jr.
Amazing. Amazing.
So I really like that he's in there. I noticed also there's a few guys that, like, you're really just happy to see them. Byron Buxton is another one too, where like he's had a lot of injury history. He's he was a former number 1 prospect for a couple years. And then it's like, oh, this guy's gonna be great, and then he gets hurt. This guy's gonna be great, and then he gets hurt. This guy's having a great first half, and then he breaks his leg. Like, it just kind of seems like he's had a lot of bad breaks. And it's really cool to kind of see him like to finally make an all-star team.
Yeah.
Um,
There's some people to really root for, I think, in this game. He's definitely one of them.
yeah. The other one that I thought was kind of interesting, I saw a video on him too. Tim Anderson, when he was told he was going to be an all-star, looked like he didn't care at all. And
I gotta think, because he loves the spotlight. I gotta think he cares. I'm surprised this is his first All-Star game.
I don't think it's his first.
Oh, okay.
It's his first as a starter, I believe. And that's what they were saying.
Okay.
Because it wasn't Tony La Russa that was telling him. It was your boy, Joe McEwing.
McEwing. Joe McEwing is going to make a good manager one day. If they're smart, they keep him on that team. Let him take over for La Russa if he ever retires. Well, that's interesting. But they've got a bomb squad, man. How about the two brothers starting? First time since 92, like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Alomar brothers were the last ones. But yeah. And it's William and Wilson Contreras because Bryce Harper, who was selected as the DH, he got hurt. So
Right. Harper's going to be out for a while. I always find that to be amazing when brothers make the major leagues. Like I didn't realize Edwin Diaz has a brother. That's a pitcher with the Reds, right?
The Yankees got to him yesterday.
Yankees got to him yesterday. That's how I realized it too. But I always find that really interesting because the odds of making the major leagues are so small. But yet think about the odds of from one family, having two, and in some cases three, players from one family. And then generationally, you think about that, Griffey's to Boone's, and it's really amazing. But now you narrow that down even more, that you have two of these guys that are starting in the All-Star game. What are the odds, for that? I mean, it's just amazing. 30 years ago, right? The Alomars starting there. It should be a good game. I think it's going to be entertaining. The uniforms look a little bit better. I hated those uniforms last year, although I love the shirt you got me. I was wearing it the other day, but the uniforms are at least a little bit better. I always liked it, I always could predict, like, if the Mets were on the road at the All-Star break, then I knew that the player selected was going to wear a road Mets jersey. You know what I mean? You can always predict that. And when they went to these American and National League last year, I wasn't crazy about it, but I like the ones this year. Those should be interesting. At least you have Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, on the jersey, right?
Yeah, and it kind of at least looks like your team, where last year, like, it looked like you were part of like a water polo team or something like that.
Yeah.
So like, but I believe the teams or the players that are in the home run derby will be wearing like their team jerseys, similar to last year. So Pete Alonso going for the 3-peat is going to be.
Yeah, I gotta start to get a little pumped up about that. The home run derby, it's okay for me, but this would be a big deal if he wins it 3 times, and it doesn't seem to affect his swing. Remember, was it David Wright when he went in, and he had a terrible second half. Bobby Abreu, I remember, wasn't the same. There's been some players over the years where it's affected, but Alonso hasn't been one of them. I mean, he's, both times that he's won it, he still had good second halves, so we'll see. That'll be fun. I don't know who would dethrone him. Is Juan Soto in it again?
Yeah.
Also, he might, he's looking for revenge, for sure. And, I love that there's so many good young players. I'm going to enjoy the tribute to Cabrera and Pujols. I don't know if they have any planned tribute, but just the fact that they're in the game, I think. And that Pujols played for the Dodgers last year. They loved him out there. So they'll give him a big round of applause. They love him in that area because obviously Dodgers and Angels play for the Angels for a long time, obviously, but I'm gonna love that part. But I especially love that the kids emulate Acuna, and I know it's Tatis. He's not in the game this year, right? Because he's been hurt. But
Yeah.
Soto, some of these younger players, even Trout, who's not that young anymore, but Shohei, it 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 really, you see that baseball's in great hands, hopefully with the younger generation, because during the Mets Braves series, I mean, you span the crowd, you see nothing but kids wearing Okuna Jr. jerseys. He's a guy that the kids love, and so it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it, actually.
Yeah. Same here. And I feel like it's another one of like probably the guy that'll steal the show again will be Shohei.
Yeah.
So he became the second Angel to strike out, and I'm not even talking like, because I'm kind of sick of the stats of, oh well, he struck out this many times and hit a home run. No one's ever done that. Of course, no one's ever done that because no one's ever done what he does. But no
Babe
one's ever
Ruth.
done this. He's had 10 plus strikeouts in his last 4 starts. The only other guy to do that was Nolan Ryan,
Oh,
as far as an Angel is concerned. So, like, that's one of those. Okay, like I can take that.
he's so good. Yeah.
Also, just for your edification here, since 1997, the American League is 23-1.
Oh my God.
And also, they've won their last 9 All-Star games.
Oh
The
my
last
God.
one was 2012 that the National League won. A roided up Melky Cabrera with that big guy. I think it was 2-run homer or something like
I
that.
remember that Melky Cabrera making the All-Star game that year, and then coming through in a big home run. Man, I gotta tell you, Kenny, if we go back in a time capsule and go back to the 70s, and if somebody predicted that the American League was going to win 23 out of 24 All-Star games, everybody get out of here. There was always so much more talent in the National League. Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Roberto Clemente, Pete Rose, Mike Schmidt. We go on and on. There's great players in the American League as well. But I mean, and Joe Morgan. I mean, the National League just they would come in to win, man. They would just show up to win. That's when it wasn't really like an exhibition game. But by far the baseball All-Star game is still by far the best. NBA is getting better. I got to give them their props. But hockey for a while was good, but man, they've kind of gone the same way as the NBA and the NFL. Forget, I don't know why they still play that game, but this is still the best All-Star game by far. But
Yeah.
20 out of 24, and I don't have much hope that they got a bomb squad this year too. All right, we're running out of time. So our second best sports moment of all time. So we're getting down to number 1. Next week we'll reveal number 1. I'll do mine really, really quick, and then you can do yours and close us out. Mine is a little bit odd because it's not, you've heard me talk about this one before, because it doesn't have to do with my team. Although it has to do with, because we're talking about pulling on the emotional, tugging on the emotional strings here, right? Something that made us just go crazy or, cheer or just sit there stunned, whatever. I remember how angry I was when the Dodgers in 7 games beat the Mets in the championship series in 1988. And Mike Scioscia with the big home run in game 4 just turned the series right around off Dwight Gooden. And so begrudgingly, I remember at first, there's no way I'm watching this World Series, but begrudgingly I watch it. It's a Saturday night. It's the A's and Dodgers, game 1. Everybody else is asleep, and we didn't have too many people in the household at the time. It was just, 2 little ones and your mom. But they were asleep because the game goes late. And, Kirk Gibson, who got hurt in the Mets series, tore his hamstring. Yet still, this is his only bat in the World Series. He comes up to pinch hit in the 9th. Dennis Eckersley, I'd have to look it up. I want to be accurate. It's either 1 or no saves that he blew all year. It's just an unbelievable closer. And so what are the odds? He's trying to shut the game down with 2 outs. Kirk Gibson, no arm. He's fouling balls off left and right. He's hurting and should have. And he almost just kind of sticks his bat out, and he hits a home run to win game 1 of that series. Sets the whole tone. From Vin Scully's call to Joe Bucks was better on the radio. I said Joe Buck, right? What was his dad? Jack Buck.
Jack
right?
Buck.
Jack Buck. And from I don't believe what I just saw, just I sat there and that got me into that World Series because I was so not gonna watch it, but I'm like, oh my gosh, did that just happen? Did Kirk Gibson on one leg just hit a game-winning home run against the best closer that he probably had one of the best seasons of all time? Dennis Eckersley was unbelievable, still is. That's my number 2 sports moment of all time.
That's
What
a
you
good
got?
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went a little bit more selfish, and I still go back to 2008. Yeah, I have that right. 2008, when the Giants are taking on the Patriots, and
Oh gosh.
the
Yeah.
like the storybook ending was already there. They faced them in week 17, played them well. It's the only team that really gave them somewhat of a scare all year. Team is marching in there 18-0, trying to make history. And Eli Manning and that giant defense holds Tom Brady down. Still, to me, probably one of the greatest plays I've seen, like, on a football team. And like, I remember me, you, and Larry watching that and be like, oh no. And then just like being like in total shock when Eli Manning evades the rush and then gets the ball to David Tyree, who then holds it with his helmet as he's almost letting go of it. Like, it was just such an absolutely crazy play. Crazy ending. Giants winning the Super Bowl over the Patriots.
It was unbelievable. I still don't know how you did that, and falling down, I mean, how do you do that on a football field and hold on to it? It was just fate, that year was definitely fate for the Giants, man. That's a great one. That is just a moment etched in time. That I don't think anybody who watched that Super Bowl will ever forget.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's get the music going and take us home, sir.
All righty. This is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny?
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We will see you all next week.
Absolutely. We'll talk some more sports and All-Star game. Maybe we'll finally have Mike back on.
Yeah.